Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. The night I retired, we were 20 floors up at the Summit Club, glass walls all around, soft jazz in the background, and about 70 people I'd worked with over the past 30 years, shaking my hand and telling me I'd earned this. I stood near the podium, drink in hand, nodding through the usual speeches, some heartfelt, some exaggerated. My name was on the custom cake, Jake Caldwell, Legacy of Leadership. I'd been a vice president at Westbridge Financial for over 2 decades, the kind of man people thanked and then forgot the moment he was out the door. My wife, Veronica, was seated near the front, wearing that navy dress I always liked. She smiled at me often, like we were still close. Lately, she'd been more affectionate than usual, too perfect, too rehearsed. Our son, Mason, leaned against the bar, scrolling his phone. He looked bored. He'd never been interested in the company dinners or what I actually did. I once offered to get him in as a junior analyst. He told me finance was for fossils. After the speeches wrapped, there was applause. I smiled, raised my glass, and stepped down. Veronica met me at the bottom of the steps. "You have a second?" she asked, slipping her arm through mine. "Of course," I said. We walked to a quieter corner of the room where Mason was waiting. Veronica pulled a cream-colored folder from her handbag and held it out. I looked at it. "What's this?" She smiled like she was offering me a birthday card. A little parting gift. Mason spoke before I could open it. "Clean and easy, Dad. Everything's already sorted. No drama." Inside were divorce papers, transfer of asset forms, property declarations, all pre-filled. Veronica tilted her head. "It's nothing personal. It's just, you're done now. You've had your time." I looked at her, then at Mason. No anger, no shock. I simply reached into my jacket, pulled out my pen, and signed every page. Slowly, carefully. "Understood," I said. They smiled like they'd won something. They had no idea the game had just started. I was out of the house by sunrise. I didn't bother waking her. I left the house like I'd planned, quietly, without a trace, without a word. By noon, my name was removed from every shared account. And then I watched it all unfold from a one-bedroom apartment in Southside, a place I'd been quietly leasing under a different name for a few months. Nothing fancy, just secure. The kind of place people walk past and never look at twice. That morning, I logged into the system I'd spent months building. 7 monitors, 4 external drives, 2 private networks, everything traceable to no one. I'd started putting it together the night I saw Veronica's messages to Simon McCall, her so-called business partner. He wasn't just helping her with real estate. They weren't subtle. Flights together, hotel bills, photos, texts, plans, and not just cheating. They were planning something. "This is the year we get everything," she wrote. "Jake retires, we split it clean. He won't fight. He's too proud." They had no idea I'd seen it all. No idea that every email, every conversation on her phone had been mirrored to a secure drive for months. She thought I didn't understand technology. That was her first mistake. Over time, I moved my assets, slowly, carefully. Liquidated retirement funds under shell entities, transferred property deeds into trusts, shifted bank accounts offshore, set up legal firewalls so dense you'd need a government task force to unravel them. By the time she handed me those papers, the only thing she was walking away with was furniture. At exactly 3:17 p.m., I received a security ping. Mason had tried to log into my brokerage account. Denied. An hour later, Veronica tried the joint checking. Empty. Then came the texts. "Where the hell are you? Why can't we access anything? I'm calling the bank." They still thought it was a glitch. I leaned back in the chair, watching the chaos start. They'd played their hand. Now it was my turn. By the next morning, the mirrored feed from Veronica's phone showed 43 missed calls, 14 from lawyers, 9 from her mortgage broker, several from the CPA we used to share. The rest came from Simon McCall and a few panicked banking contacts. They were starting to understand, not all at once, but enough to feel it in their bones. I hadn't just disappeared. I'd taken the floor out from under them. At 11 a.m., Veronica's voice hit the audio feed from her office. I'd tapped the building weeks ago. "Why can't I access any of the accounts?" she snapped into the phone. Simon's voice came through the speaker. "Everything's locked down. I tried logging in this morning. Nothing. I called Mason. He says the investment account's empty." "Empty?" "Completely." "Mason, Genius that he is, had been moving money around for months, playing with high-risk trades and transfers. I let him do it. Even slipped in some extra funds now and then to keep him overconfident. Then, right after the retirement party, I quietly moved every cent into a holding account under a legal firewall they'd never get through. They thought they were draining me, but I'd already drained them. By 1 p.m., Simon's firm was served an audit notice from the IRS, the result of the file I'd sent the day before, packed with 10 years of doctored ledgers, false write-offs, and undeclared income. At 2:17 p.m., a reporter called Veronica's real estate office. That was me too. I'd handed over forged zoning documents and time-stamped emails to a journalist I trusted. The moment her name went public, the story began to snowball. By 3 p.m., Mason's employer suspended his badge and locked his access. The anonymous tip I sent to their compliance department included screenshots of internal transactions, red flag patterns, and just enough detail to trigger an internal investigation. That's when my phone, not the one they knew, but the secure one, buzzed. It was a message from Lena. I'd worked with her for over 10 years. She was my assistant on paper, but really, she was my second set of hands. Quiet, efficient, loyal. I told her to disappear 3 days before the party. She didn't ask questions. She just did it, and now she texted me. 2 law firms just backed out of representing her. We're live. Everything I'd put in motion was just beginning to hit. And still, they hadn't figured out what was really happening. They thought I was angry. They were wrong. I was prepared. The box arrived on a Thursday. Small, black, no return address. Veronica found it on the front porch around 7 a.m. Security footage showed her standing there in her robe, just staring at it like it might explode. Inside was a burner phone and a silver USB drive. The phone rang before she touched either. She answered on the 3rd ring. Hello? I waited a beat. Then, you should have finished the game before you made your move. Jake? Her voice cracked on my name. Yes. Where are you? What the hell is this? Not hell, just consequences. Plug in the drive. There was silence on the line. I listened to the soft click of a laptop booting up. She opened the files. Jesus Christ! Months' worth of video files, audio clips, and screen recordings. Veronica and Simon, Veronica and Mason, financial documents, phone transcripts, deleted texts she thought were gone forever. I know everything, Veronica, I said flatly. I've known for months. She didn't say anything. You told Simon I was too proud to fight, too old, too blind, that I'd hand everything over and walk away quietly. I didn't. Jake, you don't understand. I do, I said. Better than you think. I gave her the silence next. Let it stretch. She finally whispered. What do you want? I wanted you to show your hand. You did. This is revenge? She snapped. You want to ruin me? No, I said calmly. You already did that yourself. I'm just turning on the lights. The call ended. Veronica sat on the couch with the drive in her lap for another hour, unmoving. I watched it all through the camera feed. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared. I think that's when she finally realized something. I was never the man she thought I was. Then I sent Lena to see Simon, not with a threat, with an opportunity. She showed up at his downtown office 2 days after the box arrived at Veronica's, hair tied back, business casual blazer, calm voice. She introduced herself as Elena Ross, a consultant with connections in asset recovery and crisis control. Simon was already sweating by the time Lena arrived. The IRS audit had hit 2 days earlier, and his legal team was starting to fracture. When Lena introduced herself at the front desk under a fake consulting name, he waved her in without asking questions. He thought she was there to help. That was the point. She sat across from him, calm and composed, and placed a folder on his desk. Inside were time-stamped photos of Simon attending 3 off-the-record property meetings, 2 of which were protected by sealed NDAs. Alongside them was an email thread he'd deleted months ago, detailing an offshore wire transfer routed through a shell company registered under a false address. He flipped through the documents with trembling fingers. Then he stopped cold at the next page. Internal records of his own staff bonus fraud. Amounts shifted quietly across departments, names redacted and rewritten. Lena let him absorb it all without saying a word. When he finally looked up, she reached into her coat and pulled out a voice recorder. She placed it on the desk and tapped it once. That was when Simon understood. He wasn't dealing with an angry ex-husband's assistant. He was dealing with a closing net. While Lena was closing in on Simon, Veronica took a different route. She crossed state lines and drove to see my brother Thomas. She hadn't spoken to him in years, not since he retired from the bench. These days, Thomas spends most of his time alone, fixing up old motorcycles. He kept his distance from family drama by choice. Still, he let her in, sat across from her while she made her case. Desperation disguised as concern. She asked for help, for insight, for a way to reach me. Thomas listened, quiet as always. Then he gave her the one thing she hadn't counted on: honesty. When she left, her hands were empty. There was no sympathy. Just the long, quiet realization that she had spent years married to a man she never truly understood, and now stood completely outside his world. She drove home with nothing but her reflection staring back at her in the passenger window. That afternoon, I pressed send on 2 files. One went to a journalist I trusted, the other to a state investigator. Veronica's entire licensing history, Mason's fraudulent trades, Simon's internal kickback schemes. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to threaten. I just needed to let gravity take over. The invitations were sent through a mediation firm. Very legal. They thought it was a settlement negotiation. They showed up dressed like winners. Veronica in a black pantsuit, Mason with slicked back hair and a leather folder. Simon, pale and visibly thinner, was trying hard to pretend he still had control. When the doors opened, it wasn't a legal team waiting. It was press. 5 reporters, 2 from national outlets, cameras already rolling. In the front row, 3 federal agents and a state financial investigator. A large projection screen lit up behind them. The door shut and locked. "What is this?" Veronica snapped, spinning to leave. But my security blocked the exit. The screen flickered. First slide was a copy of her zoning fraud signature, date-stamped. Next was Mason's fake investment reports with altered profit margins and investor names. Then came the real blow. An audio recording. Veronica and Simon. Her voice, clear and cold. "Once Jake's retired, we'll file. Move everything." He won't even see it coming. Simon's voice answered, "If he pushes back, he won't. He's tired," she replied. Veronica stood frozen. Mason turned red, looking for a corner to hide in. Simon just sat down and buried his face in his hands. They didn't know the full plan. I'd given exclusive media rights to a journalist, one who'd already vetted every file I sent. The room was legally sealed. Cameras were allowed. It was over before they knew it had started. I'd said almost nothing this whole time. But when the truth is that loud, you don't need to. 6 months later, I was living in a small coastal town 2 continents away. No more codes to break, just a rental house with stone walls. I walked the beach every morning before sunrise. No phone, no headlines, just the tide. One afternoon, the secure line buzzed. It was Lena. She gave the update with the same precision she always had. Simon had been sentenced that morning, 18 months on paper with the potential for more if he failed to cooperate. His firm was collapsing under the weight of federal scrutiny. Veronica hadn't fared much better. Financial fraud had cost her everything. Her license had been suspended for 3 years, and civil suits were stacking up by the week. She was trying to stay afloat, but the damage was too deep, too public. Then came Mason. His plea deal had fallen apart. Investigators had traced the fake offshore activity back to his own apartment's network. He was no longer a minor player in someone else's scheme. He was the centerpiece of his own criminal case, heading to trial next quarter. Lena finished the update with quiet finality. Every person who underestimated me had fallen. I didn't need to respond with anything more. I sat there in silence for a long time. People always ask if revenge is worth it, if it gives you peace. That's not what this was. Peace isn't given. It's built. Slowly, patiently. Sometimes one quiet step ahead of the people who bet their lives on your silence. I didn't hate them. I just stopped pretending. They handed me betrayal with a bow on top. I returned it, gift-wrapped in truth. Before sunset, I logged into the final server. One last script, a master monitoring program I'd used to watch every piece of their world, flashed on the screen. I selected delete all tracking. No more updates, no more feeds, no more ties. I walked to the shore that evening, let the salt hit my face. Whatever they do now is no longer my concern. They wanted to play me. They thought the game ended with my signature. They never understood the rules, and they definitely never saw the board. Checkmate. Thank you for watching.